Hey everyone, and welcome back to GoodKnit Kisses. I'm your host, Kristen. Welcome, welcome. I am just getting my things settled. You would not believe my day. I am going to be showing you how to convert patterns today. So bear with me while I get this thing settled, while we get everybody in place. And let me adjust my camera. I'm so glad that you joined me today. Be sure and share this video. Let's see. Getting it all set up. Looks like we've got a few people jumping in. I'm trying to get set up so I'm as close as I can so you can see what I'm writing, what I'm reading. Sorry, it's taking me just a little bit longer. Hey, Gayla. Yeah, I'm glad I made it. I ran a few minutes behind. So I've got all my tools set up. I've got my, you don't need this book, but I've got some graph paper in here I'm going to use. You can use colored pencils. You can use pencils with an eraser. This is my backup. I'm going to go ahead and sharpen this up. So while you're joining me, if you would pop in and go ahead and comment and let me know if you have converted patterns before, if there's a particular pattern you've been wanting to convert. I want to talk a minute about stitch patterns, and they are they're everywhere. They're in books that you see. You open up a book, you flip it through, it's got a stitch pattern for needles, and you're like, I want to use it for the loom. So if anybody is here and would like to hey, Lori, I'm adding you as a moderator if we need a little bit of help. So I'm letting you be a moderator, and Gayla is a moderator. So thanks for joining me live. By the way, I want to say if you're joining me on replay, thank you so much. Big hearts to you. And I hope that you find this tutorial helpful. We will be going from looking at a pattern that you might find anywhere. This one was found online by one of our viewers, and she says, hey, how do I convert this? And so we're going to convert it. I know it's a little bit small right here. That's fine. I'm going to zoom in and you'll see. That's okay, Lori. If you just see somebody who's live that you don't think is supposed to be here, like it's a vulgar comment or something, then you can click on the person and then you can hit put in timeout. You can remove them. You can report them. There's different things that you can do as a moderator. Okay, so we've got a good crowd of people here. Be sure and hit that thumbs up if you are excited about this. And, you know, go ahead and save and share this video. I would love it. My tools right now, if you want to know, I've got my pencil, a colored pencil because I want to be able to mark repeats. And I've got my my organizer notebook, which today I'm using it because I've got some graph paper in here. So I'm just going to tear out a few pages and get that ready. You can use any kind of graph paper, and I just happen to have this handy dandy here. Okay, let me use the back of it. All right. Let me see if I can get a little bit closer in. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. So I'm looking at my notes. Hold on one moment. Okay. So the original pattern, I'm going to jump over to it, and it shows, let's see. We're going to go, sorry, hold on. I've got a thing off the side here. I want you to see it close up and in a big view. Say you're on a free website. This one is knittingstitchpatterns.com. And I'm not trying to recreate this. I'm not trying to steal content. What I am doing is, say you're in a book, you're online, wherever, it's a free site, you're in a library, whatever. You want to take something that's on needles, make it for the loom. You see a pretty pattern, looks like this. Sweet, right? It's really pretty. Has this really cool three-dimensional block form, and you either find the image and then you do a reverse Google search and you find, hey, it's called XYZ Stitch. This one happens to be the Tumbling Moss Blocks Stitch. Okay, sometimes it says block. Tumbling Moss Blocks. It looks like kind of a moss stitch and then knit stitches and purl stitches. But how do you recreate that? Okay, well, this pattern, oh, got an ad popping up. This pattern, stop it, your website. Okay. So this pattern right here is created. Stop with the ad. Okay, sorry, y'all. Technical issues. I want you to be able to see this, so I'm trying to zoom in. This information here is telling me that um, it was created using only knit and purl stitches, and it looks the same on both sides, which is really cool, right? I mean, you could make a blanket out of this, and it's ideal. In fact, I know there are some Ravelry blankets online that people use this entire thing for a blanket, and then you can choose the edging stitches that you want to use for the edge. Like if you did a like I say, a garter stitch or seed stitch border, or no border at all. So that's how that works. Uh, the pattern right here, it's telling us that it's knit in a multiple of 10 stitches and a 20 row repeat. Okay, we'll get to all these little nuances of things. Because I don't know the level of the different knitters who are watching here today, the different loom knitters, I'm going to talk like, hopefully you've done some knitting before, some loom knitting before, but I'm going to assume that you're pretty much a beginner. You know some of the terms. You may know how to knit and you may know how to purl. All right. So, and if you don't know how to purl and you don't like doing it, I would say please try. After a while, it gets much easier, and you'll be so much happier that you did, because it opens up a whole world, because combinations of knit and purl stitch patterns are just, there's so many of them. I don't even know how many there are. There's thousands and thousands of them. Okay, so when you're reading the pattern, you're going to see that it's knit in a multiple of 10 stitches and 20 row repeats. That means every 10 stitches, this pattern here is going to repeat itself. So say I want to have 30 stitches wide, it will have 3 repeats, 1, 2, 3. And then 20 rows, that means that every 20 rows from the row number 1 to the finishing 20, it starts over again at 1. Okay, so let's say I want to look at, I'm going to look at a pattern here. Let's say that this is row 1 here. Okay, the top of my, let me get a pencil here. So this is my row 1. Okay, as I knit, we've got row 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It keeps going. The next time I see this look like this little moss stitch, the little tip here, the next time I see the tip is up here, right? Forget about this part that goes above it here. Okay, we're just going to look the tip of this right here down to here. So from here to here, that is my pattern repeat. That is actually 20 rows to get that. Okay. So, and then it's 10 stitches wide. So if you actually look at this, it actually starts like right here. It's like half of one of these blocks and half of one of these blocks. So this part in here is only 10 stitches wide, but because there's so many repeats, you're actually seeing it again and again. So we've got 1, 2, and then a half of one over here, and here's another one over here. So anyway, that's kind of to give you an overview of what it means to have a multiple and a 20 row repeat. If you saw something that had plus something like 10 plus 1 or 10 plus 2, those are some extra stitches that allow you to have an edging or a nice beginning and ending, like a finishing spot. Some patterns just require an extra amount for different reasons. Some of them could be like a half repeat, or it gives you something nice to put up against a border. It may not necessarily actually be your border, but when you see something that has 10 plus 2, then what you need to do is say we go with our 30 stitches we talked about. Say you want 3 repeats wide, and say this had a plus 1, then you would have 30 plus 2. So the number is divided by the first number that you see, and then you add on those extra 2. Okay, so that would be 32. In this case, it's 30 if I'm going to do 30 stitches wide. Okay, moving on to the next basics of converting a pattern. So now that we know how many stitches we need, we're going to go to row 1. Now, row 1 and row 2, you always want to notice for something called right side or wrong side. In this case, it doesn't actually tell you what RS means, but it means right side. RS always means right side, and WS always means wrong side. So we know that row 1 is right side. That means this part, this row is what's facing us, okay? Now on needles, when you knit on one row, you flip them over, okay? If you're working in a flat panel, you flip over your work, boop, and then you're working on the reverse on the back side of it. So whatever you do, you have to make the stitch that's the opposite as what is going to appear on the front. And I have a little cheat sheet, a little chart for you to use. So we'll have that we'll have that link that we'll drop in here in a little bit later, but I'm going to show you what that means. So every other row, you're going to have to do the opposite of what is going to be seen on the right side. Now, the pattern is written, in the written pattern, it's written doing the opposite. So for needle knitters, they write exactly what you need to know, but this is not what's actually seen on the front side. It's seen when you're actually working the stitch right in your hands on your knitting needles. Okay, so in this case, we notice that all the odd rows are right side rows, and that means that all the evens are wrong side rows. So we have to kind of like tick that in the back of our mind. Okay, and I'm going to note that every time I see row 1 right side, then or row 1 or an odd number, it's going to be on the right side. So I have no converting that I need to do. Okay, now when it comes to the even rows, that's the part that we are going to have to convert. So I'm on row 2 and I see P2. Okay, so that means that on the needles they have to purl. So we want to do the opposite stitch. What's the opposite stitch of a knit? Well, it's a purl. And the opposite of a purl, so the opposite of purl is a knit, and the opposite of a knit is a purl, same thing. So we want to do on the loom the opposite. Okay, so without going into what directions are, how this means with the repeats and stuff just yet, let me pop over to my conversion chart because I want you to see what this thing looks like. So if you find that you have, you're converting something and you're doing something beyond knits and purls and you're confused, I have a little chart. Now it doesn't have everything, but this is just a handy dandy little chart that you can use. So if you know you're on a wrong side row, you can look at this WS here. And these are the basic stitches here. And this is online. I've just printed out what I have on my website. When you see a purl stitch, you want to make it a knit stitch. So this is what's knit on the wrong side, and this is what comes out on the right side. Over here, when you see a knit, you're going to purl. When you see a purl through the back loop, you'll knit through the back loop. By the way, knit through the back loop is an E-wrap. So an E-wrap or an E-wrap knit, okay, same difference. That's what that is, okay? So if you want to do the opposite on a purl, well, like say you see purl through the back loop, all you're doing is actually E-wrapping it, so you don't need to do anything. But if you see knit through the back loop, okay, then you're going to purl. It's going to look like a purl in the back loop. So in order to actually get that on the right side, I mean, it'd be really random that you had, it's not seen very often, but you would just E-wrap that, or you could just purl that stitch and then you just flip it over to give it a twist like an E-wrap would be. And so that's all you do. And then we have slip with the yarn in front. And so the opposite would be slip with the yarn in back. And some of the slipping and stuff, don't worry about that on looms as much, but it's really about making sure the yarn is in front or behind the peg. If it's in front, you're having to pick up the loop and lay it in front. So we're not going to handle that today. Yes, you can convert cables. The crosses and twists are cable stitches. Yes, you can convert those. Yes, you can convert decreases and increases. We're not covering that in this video, but this is the cheat sheet for that. And of course, there are other abbreviations that are missing from here, because we just can't cover everything, but this is a good little cheat sheet guide to get you there. Okay, so back to the pattern that we're going to be doing. So this is the sheet that I printed of what we looked at on the website that someone had asked me about. I'm going to go back to the website because it may be harder to read on here. So what I like to do is I want to study this for a quick second just to make sure I can wrap my head around it and make sure I notice what the stitch repeat is. Oh, and by the way, hi everyone who's joining me. I am going to answer some questions later on. I'm just going to kind of get right into this and start showing you how to do the conversions and my tips and trips along the way. So just hold tight. If you have questions, be sure and write your question down so that when I ask for questions, you'll be able to type it in later on. All right, so we want to look at this, and I want to explain how to read a pattern in case you don't know how already. Again, I'm having to assume that some people are beginners, and I want them to understand how to read the pattern. So this way you can really tell if you're even interpreting the stitches correctly. All right. Hi, Mia. I love your emoji. If you're seeing all these extra icons and stuff on people's badges, it's because they're members. So thank you so much. The right side, row 1, it's showing asterisk. Okay, can you guys see that okay? If you can't see, just say move closer or something. When you see the asterisk, that means that anything that follows this first asterisk that you see is going to be repeated over and over. And if I skip down to the end, you can see that it says REP, which is short for repeat, from the asterisk to the end. So basically you work this stitch, and then you repeat all the way back to the front of it, all the way until the end of your row. That's what that means. So we're going to purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1. It's just a standard rib stitch, but you want to look at it because purl is usually, when you're saying ribbing, it's not always, I mean, it's usually people say knit 1, purl 1, but this, in this case, is not actually ribbing. It's actually going to be looking like something else. It's actually going to look like the moss stitch, or actually it looks like a seed stitch to me. All right, the next row here says P2. Oh, I'm sorry, let me go back. I said I'd talk about multiples. Let me not pass up myself. So multiples of 10. So we know that 1 stitch plus 2 stitch, the second stitch is 2 stitches. Well, if we're repeating that to infinity and our line is divisible by 10, then this is equal to 10. Even if it's divisible by 30, this is still going to be repeatable to 10. Okay, so it's not 2 stitches, it's actually an even number of stitches. So if this said it was a 20 stitch repeat, this would still work too. All right, jumping to row 2. This one here, let's just simply look at numbers. I'm not converting right now. We have an asterisk, we have purl 2, so that's 2 stitches, plus we have a knit 1, purl 1 3 times. That means whatever's in these parentheses is repeated 3 times. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus 7, 8, and then these last 2 knits, 9, 10. And then it says repeat from the asterisk. So here, so this is 10 stitches over and over until I get to the end of my blanket. It could be 70 stitches, it could be 180, 280, however many you have, as long as it's divisible by 10 in this particular pattern. Okay, so if you had a pattern that said 7, it would be divisible by 7. So this could be 49 stitches if it was divisible by 7, okay, if that was the multiple. Now, the third row, you've got purl 3, knit 1, purl 1 twice. So we're going to have 3 stitches. Then we have 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we have 8, 9, 10 for this knit 3. So this one works too. And you can do this all the way down through your pattern and double check yourself, especially if you're trying to write the pattern again yourself, or you're looking at someone's new pattern and you might notice an error. I mean, people make errors in their patterns. So even on Ravelry, there's some errata, like they note when there's a problem in the patterns, and that's what that means. So you might actually have trouble with the pattern, but it could be that there was a problem with the pattern. So you can always double check those things anytime. All right, so I'm going to jump over here and show you what I think is a great tool. When I see stuff like this, I know that a chart really is helpful because everything on the chart is a graphic illustration. It's a visual. You guys are visual. You're on YouTube, right? Everybody's visual here. Give me a thumbs up if you're visual. But if you're visual, you will really enjoy charts. Okay. So, sorry, I hope the glare's not so bad there. Well, probably should keep that to where you can see it. Let me do this. Hold on. All right. So I have my graph paper here. Let me zoom in. Okay. And what I want to do is set up a chart for making this pattern here. So I know that I have a multiple of 10. Okay. So I'm going to put my multiple right here. Now, what you need to know when you're working with charts is you always start the row down here. The beginning rows start down here. Okay, so my first row is a right side row. I'm actually going to say right side, and so I already know that all my number one rows are right side. This is just a reminder to me. I don't always do this on charts, but it's going to help you here too. So I'm going to start writing down just the first 10 stitches. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so that's the first 10 stitches. And if you want, you can see how many across you can get. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep. Okay, so, and we'll go to, okay, so we've got like 3 repeats across. Okay, then we've got a 20 row repeat, right? 20 row repeat. Okay, so we're going to go up. Okay, now you may ask, why does this start in the lower right hand corner when we read from left to right in English? Well, imagine, well, it just happens to start on the right. I don't know the trivia of why we start on the right, but we do. I think it's just because when you have your needles and you're right-handed, when you first start working here's a point of the needle. When you first working your first stitch, it's on your right here. And so when the knitting comes out, it starts like like imagine my fingers are the knitting. So my knitting's growing. Now my knitting's growing. I'm trying to do that. Now my knitting's growing. So it's getting longer and longer, right? So when we start, our knitting starts here like this. And when I start working my first stitch, it goes the first one, second, third, fourth. That's the reason why it starts there. On the loom, you can start on left or right, but this is just building the actual stitch here. Sorry, I'm trying to touch the screen. I can't tell if people are writing questions. Okay, so yeah, you can go online and get free graph paper, Oliver's saying. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and count up 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so this is row 20. Okay, now, quick thing. So when I'm working a flat panel, when I'm working back and forth, right, my odd rows, my right side rows are going to be on the right hand side of this paper. But when I get all the way down to wherever I end, I have to start working my way back, right? Because, or correct, I should say. So all of my even rows are going to be on this side over here. So I know by putting my number here that for a flat panel, I'm going to work my way back that way, right? If I was making this in a circle like this, working all the way around, then when I start over again, it's all going to be on the same side. So I'm not going to confuse you right now. We're just going to do the flat. So if I go up here and mark, I'm not going to put 20 up here. I'm actually going to put 19 the row below, and I could come down 17, 15, 14. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. I saw somebody pop up and then I'm not even reading my own numbers. Okay, so we got 13, 11, 9, 7, 5, 3. Okay, so I have all my odd rows here. Now I can easily come over and start reading my chart and reading my pattern and making a chart for it. So I'm going to go to my right side row and I've got purl knit. Okay, and that's repeated. So I'm going to mark my purls. You can mark them with a dot or like a line. Okay, so I'm just going to mark mine with a line. So I've got purl, and the knits are blank, and you can make yourself a little graph here. So we've got our little key. So we have knit, and then we have purl. Okay, so I've got purl, knit, purl, knit. So every other one is worked with a little dash. Is this, here, let me zoom in. Is that better? Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we're ending our repeat with a knit. All right. Now, you can start converting or you can start filling in your pattern. It's just really whatever your preference is. Let's go ahead and just do row by row, but I could go, and so I've already gotten this one done, but I could skip and do this one, okay? And just start marking those. But I'm going to skip it. I'm going to start showing you how to convert those. So the first one is purl 2. Well, I want to do it, but remember, I have to work from the opposite direction. So I'm going to do all your repeats first. I recommend just doing one repeat wide and one repeat tall. Okay, so the 10 stitches wide. So we're going to purl 2 on needles, but the opposite's going to be shown. So we're going to do a knit, knit, okay, and then the next stitch says, knit 1, purl 1 3 times, but we need to do the opposite. So we have a knit, knit, and then we want to knit 1, purl 1, but we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit. Okay, and then the last one says K2, that's knit 2. Well, we're actually going to purl 2. Okay, I'm having a difficulty if I look at my paper, if I look at the monitor. Sorry, this is live. All right, so now we want to run over to row 3. Okay, so we've done row 2. Row 3 is purl 3 and then knit 1, purl 1. So purl 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we can just do the line like that. And then we have knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. And we have to do that twice. And then we have a knit 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we're leaving those blank. Now we're going to go to row 4, which is purl 4, but it's actually knit 4 for us. So we're going to skip the first 4 stitches and we're going to knit 1, purl 1. But again, we have to do the opposite. So we're going to skip 4 stitches and then do purl 1, knit 1. So I go up, I'm on this 4th line here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to purl 1, knit 1. And then we're going to knit 4, which we're doing the opposite, so we're going to purl 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, are we starting to see a pattern emerge here? So now you're seeing this little seed stitch down here, and then you can see that this is just all reverse stockinette. These are all purl stitches here, and it's kind of developing that little line there. So now we're going to go to number 5, which is purl 5, knit, whoops, sorry, I'm not in the camera. Purl 5, knit 5, and it's the same for 6. So purl 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and knit 5. And now we're on row 6 right here. So we're going to go in this direction. And it's also purl 5, knit 5. Here's the trick though. Watch this. Don't miss things like this where it says 5 through 6. That means you have to do this twice. However, when you get to number 6, we have to do the opposite. So it's going to be knit 5, purl 5. Watch this. Right? So it's going to be double of what it was here. All right. So now we're going to move on to, we already done this one. Whoops. And this one, both of them. And now we're on row 7. We're going to knit 1, purl 4. Knit 1, purl 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then knit 4, purl 1. Knit 4, 2, 3, 4, and purl 1. Okay, I'm going to work my way back. In row 8 is, sorry, I have like dye on my hands. Sorry, my nails are not dirty. The purl 1, knit 1, but we're doing the opposite. So we're knit 1, purl 1, and then knit 3. So knit 1, purl 1, and knit 3. 1, 2, 3. So now I'm at this one, and then knit 3, purl 1. So we're going to purl 3, knit 1, purl 3, knit 1, and then we have a purl 1. Okay, so it's starting to change up. Starting to change up. All right, I'm doing this very slowly because I want you to see the pattern emerge, and this is exactly how I want you to do it. Don't fall into my mistake. What I had done before when I first started learning is I was like, okay, cool. And I would blast through this whole chart and trying to do it, but then I would get myself hung up. And so I found that it's actually easier just to do just the repeat, because you actually don't need this entire huge thing if you can just manage this little small sheet of paper. Okay. Yeah, you can do this and play around with color and other stuff if you make it really big. But anyway, I just want you to see that. Okay, so now we've done 8. We're on row 9. We're knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 2. Oops. So it's knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, and then purl 2, 1, 2. Okay, and then knit 2, 1, 2, and then purl 1, and then yeah, okay, and then yeah, and then we're done. Sorry, I'm trying to look over to the side. Okay, so I've got that one done, and then now, okay, whew, got a little bit of relief. Now we're on row 10, which is purl 1, knit 1, and we're gonna do the opposite, so knit 1, purl 1. So, and if you're not sure where you are, just kind of follow this line up, okay, and we're gonna do knit 1, purl 1, every other one across, and then 11 does knit 1, purl 1, so we're going to knit 1, purl 1, so it's the opposite. We're getting that seed stitch back again, okay? So I just did 10 and 11. Okay. Oh, I just saw an awesome comment. Someone said it's easier than I thought. Yes, it is. You can do this, everyone. You can totally do this. Yes, there are harder patterns, but there are so many things you can do with knit and purls. It's ridiculous. And they're beautiful. All right, so let's do this one. This one is a little bit different. We got purl 1, knit 1. Okay, and I'm doing the opposite. So I'm going to do, and oh, and the other thing I was going to say, you can do this on the paper too. So like, let's do this here. So this one we're going to knit, this one we're going to purl, this one we're going to knit, this we're going to purl. So you can write it on your paper. Sorry, I don't have anything hard underneath this paper. It's like making it ridiculously hard. So you could just do that. It's just that it gets like really gross looking. So knit, purl, and then, okay, so hold on, let me just come over here. I'm going to move this to the side. All right, so we're on row 12. Knit, purl, knit. Ah, I'm losing my place on the other side of the monitor. Sorry. purl, knit, purl 2, and then knit 2, 1, 2, and then purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. Row 13 is knit 1, purl 1, knit 3, 1, 2, 3, and purl 3, 1, 2, 3, knit 1, purl 1. Okay. And you could fully color in these boxes, or you can make a dot. With my lines and stuff, it's not that perfect, but anyway, there's just different ways that you can do it. You just choose the symbol you want. And then I kind of follow this line up. Now I am going to use my colored pencils here in just a second. You can even use like highlighters and stuff like that. Now, I have people talking about U-wraps and E-wraps and all that stuff. I can talk about that later on, but I'm sure Joanne is our moderator on GoodKnit Kisses, so when you see her talking, that's her. So you can ask her questions and she'll answer too. Okay, so where are we now? We're on row 14. So we're purl 1, so that's going to be a knit, and then we have purl 4, knit, and then purl 4. And then we have knit 4 and then purl 1. So knit 4 and then purl 1. Row 15. Okay, here's another one. This is just like earlier when we had 2 rows together. See how I've got 2 rows here? So I need to make sure and do both of those. Peggy asked, will it matter how we start looming right to left or clockwise? Yeah, no, it does not matter. And I will talk about that here in a minute. I'm going to finish getting this one on paper though. And then I'll talk about direction and stuff like that. Okay, so we're going to knit 5, purl 5. And then we're going to purl 5, knit 5. And then 17 is knit 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then purl 1. I could have pre-done this, but I really wanted y'all to see me actually doing it. And then we have knit 1, and then we have purl 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and 18. Okay, so we're back to we're on row 18. I just checked it off, but I didn't actually finish it. So this is another one with the parentheses. So if you just joined us late, you're going to be doing the opposite on this row. So it's going to be purl 1, purl 3, and then we do the purl 1, knit 1 2 times, and then but it's actually knit 1, purl 1 because we're doing the opposite, and then we do knit 3 opposite. So purl 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, because we're repeating those parentheses twice. And then we have knit 3. And that was, okay, and then now we're on 19, which is knit 2. And then we have purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, and then ends in purl 2. So, sorry, it's moving off the screen here. So I did that one and that one. Here's our last row. It's knit 1, purl 1 across, but we're opposite, so we're purl 1. Last row, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, all the way across. Perfect. So that's what this looks like here. All right, so let me zoom out a little bit. Now let me get a colored pencil. Sorry, I keep hitting my thing here. Okay, so what I want to do is mark my pattern repeat. I'm going to take a pencil that I can see, or a red pen. Just make sure that you know exactly where you're going on it. So I'm just going in between the stitches here, in between stitch number 10 and 11. And then I'm going to go right at 20, and I'm going to mark this here. Okay? This whole thing is my pattern repeat. Okay? So this is a multiple of 10 by 20 rows. Okay? Now, this right now does not look like this, okay? It will when you start repeating this out. So let's say I want to start repeating this out. Well, I already know what this one starts because I can just now just start copying this, and I can go, oh, every other stitch, you know, and keep going. And you can even do it up here because I'm like, well, I know what that one does now, you know. So it's just repeating across. Okay, I'm just going to go all the way out to here because I want you guys to see this pattern kind of emerge. Okay, so then we kind of we repeat this. You can start top down. It doesn't really matter now that I've got this, but I'm just going to go row by row. So I got 2, and then I skip 1, and then we're every other stitch here. And then look, so I had made this little tick mark here, okay? So this little tick mark just marked the next 10 stitches. So I had 1 through 10, so this is actually number 20, and over here is number 30, right? Because I put this little mark here, I know to stop my repeat of these 10 stitches, and then I start over again, because right here, it's gonna, yeah, see, I messed up there. So I've got purl 2, and then I have a sequence of knit 1, purl 1 3 times, and then I have 2 knit stitches, and then I go back into 2 purl stitches. Okay, and so this line can kind of be drawn up if you need to see it again. Okay, so it's up to you. Okay, you could make them in different colors or whatever, but of course the pencil can be seen. I suggest a pencil because you saw I messed up. If you do it in pen, then you're just sabotaging yourself, you know. So then we're going to repeat this one. 1 2 3. And then this one is 1 2 3 4. And then we have 1 2 3 4 5. This is why I need to be silent. Sorry, y'all hearing my. Sorry about that interruption there. Pattern really start to tell. Let me just start in so you can. I normally wouldn't do this. I'm just trying to get you to see it if you can't. It kind of has this 3-dimensional look to it. Do you guys see that? So I'm not trying to go like crazy here, but you can see how this part right here is like part of the block. It's like cut off right here. So it's like this part to this part. And then this one will continue to look just like this when you come over here. So when you start moving upwards, now you're going to get like, see this little part here? That's the other end of this. So as soon as you make one more of these and stack it up here, it starts completing that look. And now you get this look here. totally cool and 3D, right? I love it. So let's just answer a couple of extra questions here. I know I've kind of gone on long and done things like literally like minute by minute. I think Joanne has answered most of the questions that people had about e-wrapping or a U-knit or traditional knit. You can use any of those stitches that you want because it's whatever gauge you want and whatever yarn you want and whatever loom you want. That's up to you. Now, if you're right-handed or left-handed, a lot of times people prefer to take their loom. Here's a loom, and if you're left-handed, then you enjoy purling towards the right. If you're right-handed, you enjoy purling to the left in both directions, either anyway. So it's up to you where you choose to start this thing. I'd like to, if I can, it depends on the stitches. Sometimes I find that there's a complicated stitch in here on the right side row or something, and I like to work it in a certain direction. So I will read ahead and look at the pattern and see which way I want to work it, which might be easier for me. So that really kind of depends, and it's a little bit more advanced on talking about it. But here, this is my starting peg. If I want to work from all my right side stitches, well, all the odd rows, sorry, yeah, all the odd rows just like they are on the chart, then of course I can chart it all the way to here, and I'd say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then I can start again my peg 1. If I'm going to have 20 pegs wide on here, I could put all of my 1 pegs where my repeats are with a work my chart. It's and every next time doesn't have a chart. You actually see a chart, then you won't be surprised and you will say, "Oh my gosh, I totally know how to do that based upon what it says to do here." So, but if you decide you go in the opposite direction, that's fine. You just need to know that you may need to make yourself a note that you're going the opposite way, but you can just start the first stitch though, knitting the first stitch, and it goes here. And then you know that your second stitch, you'll know yourself which direction you're going. So one direction and then picking up and working the next direction, as long as the stitches are like I can start on this side of the chart and make this my beginning and work this way. As long as the next stitch up comes up right above it, it's fine. You don't want to say, oh, I want to work this direction from left to right instead of right to left. You don't want to work from this direction and then the next row you start here. That won't work unless you're knitting. Sorry, I'm way too scooched in here. Unless you're knitting in the round. So let's say that this was 30 stitches, just like this, and I want to make this into a hat pattern. This is not a 36 peg loom, but if it was, you could continue your stitch pattern. You just go up to the next row and it repeats from there. So that's how that works. I'm trying to think if I have any other questions to answer. I do have to cut it short. I do have to go and get my kids from school, so I am going to have to leave here in a second. But I do want to show you what that other website looked like that had the there it is. This is the other website that had it. So it's the same pattern here. Yes, you can do it in the round. So like this one right here says cast on multiple tens. This is a flat panel, knitted flat on. But if you see directions like this in the round on circular needles, ta-da, it is actually written the correct way that you need it for the, unless you're working something that changes a knit tube, then you would have problems in that, or you'd have challenges there. But as long as it says circular needles and everything's in the round, then you just need to focus on that. So focus on this one and you've got it all written out for you. If you find that you just find a chart and you're like, all I have is a chart, then trust the chart. And if it says that the right, you're just going to follow the right side stitches. So right side is always purl and right side is always, and this little dot here on here is right side is purl. So just read whatever it says for right side. Ignore this wrong side thing because the pattern is written, the chart right here, not the key, but the chart is charted for everything to be facing right side. If you are a needle knitter, you have to do some extra jumps in your brain, and you have to know that when you're on a wrong side row and you see that stitch, oh, Mrs. Needle Knitter is going to have to knit that and not purl it. So it's actually easier for loom knitters looking at a chart. That's why I encourage you, when you find something like this that's not circular and you find something like this that's flat, chart it for yourself, and then you have the records for it. Keep them, keep your good records, and your notes on it. Keep notes of what loom you used, what yarn you used. That's also why we have this book here. So this is our project page, and you can keep notes on what you did. Even on the back, there is this little graph, chart paper, so you can put your stitch patterns on there, all the notes that you need. So you can also get this on had a timer going off. You can get this on KB Looms. You can get it on Knit or Kiss Looms. Also, Stephen Schofer on Schofer Books on Amazon has it, and a couple of local yarn stores have this book. This is the GoodKnit Kisses Yarn Project Organizer and Workbook. And if you didn't get it, if you need to, help when you're converting and you want to find needle patterns or yarns on the right looms, you can look at the back of this book on our new knitting loom guide. The knitting loom guide, there's no stitch patterns, there's no pattern patterns, but these are all the looms, practically all the looms in the world, or the major looms in the world. And these are ones, and tells you all the different things you need to know. So if I find a needle pattern that says that it is a size 8 needle, then I go find this needle and I go, oh, I need an SG loom. What's an SG loom? Well, it's a small gauge loom, and it is, I can get a peg center to center measurement of 5/16, 3/8, or 7/16, and the average stitches per inch is 4 to 5 stitches per inch. And hey, what yarn do I use? Let's go to SG. Go down to SG. Oh, I can use a 2 to a 4 weight yarn, or Sport, Baby, DK, worsted, or Aran weight. And if I'm in the UK or Australia, then I know that I can do a 2 to 4 ply, 8 ply, or DK weight. So it's a really handy little thing. These are just different tools to use, but the main tools you need is some graph paper, pencil, and a little bit of patience. So I hope that's helped you guys. I hope you guys got answers to what you need. I'm really glad you joined me today. So sorry I can't stay for longer, but it's been such a blast. And be sure and drop your questions and comments down below if you have more later. If you have a stitch pattern that you want us to attempt at GoodKnit Kisses and knit it up or convert it and make it into a washcloth or something for you, that's fine. I do want to talk really quickly about copyright. It's okay to use a stitch pattern from any book and convert it and put it onto the loom. It's fine. It's just a stitch pattern. It's a tool to get you something to make an actual larger pattern. It is not a copyrightable thing. The stitch patterns are not copyrightable. I mean, if you're like using someone's graphics and using someone's words and stuff like that, okay, that's different. But to take a stitch pattern and use it and apply to your own things, and even making your own designs, is perfectly fine. And it's like a recipe. Okay, so make a recipe and make your own stuff. Have fun with it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial here at GoodKnit Kisses. Have a great day, and happy knitting and crochet and looming. Bye, everyone.